New tonight, several homeowners living next to a country club under construction are worried about their trees.
Our Mike McKnight learned the State Department of Agriculture is investigating a chemical overspray. In a First Alert 6 investigation, he shows us why neighbors are crossing their fingers.
Beyond his fence, Chris Johnson still has natural protection when Coffee Tree Country Club opens for golf maybe later this year.
Our property goes roughly about here.
But Johnson says in mid-June, an applicator's weed and brush killer blew off course and into his tree line.
I'm just a little worried, just that the tree is ultimately dying versus getting or gotten burnt from the chemicals.
An estimated 9 fairway neighbors like Deb Tim see their trees in distress.
There's a lot of damage to the lower branches on the smaller trees especially.
State licensed applicator Gavin McGuire handled spraying of the herbicide along the course, and neighbors claim using a drone.
Well, I think they could have taken maybe a better approach. I don't know if you should use a drone when you're this close to so many people's personal properties.
The Nebraska Department of Ag confirms an inspector has documented tree damage, and the alleged overspraying that caused it is under review. The developer sent me a text saying that he's retained an independent consulting arborist, who he says has been up and down the tree lines often, inspecting the effects of the spray on the trees. Course developer Brett Clure sent a statement saying a majority of affected trees have set buds for next year, and we're optimistic about the recovery. He says by May next year, they should have an accurate health analysis of the trees.
You can see the top 50% of this tree has completely been fried.
3 neighbors hired their own certified arborist.
Too early to know for sure which ones are savable, which ones are not. Some things it's a complete death sentence, and then some things, trees are resilient, sometimes they can come out.
The arborist with 24 years experience says for many trees adversely affected by weed and brush spraying, survival is touch and grow.
They're going to have to give the trees as much TLC as they can, which is going to cost a lot. I would get an expert in here to do deeper fertilization that's going to also include your micronutrients.
The developer says he'll stay in the loop to make sure everything is handled professionally between all parties involved.
We don't know what to expect or ask at this point, but it's just making sure that it's being addressed and, our concerns are heard.
And concerns that can be seen in bare branches with leaves turning brown and falling weeks before fall.
We're living the fall every day.
But the extent of damage from the alleged chemical overspray can only be gauged by how many trees spring back to life next year. Near 204th and West Center, Mike McKnight, First Alert 6.
The applicator tells Mike he's working closely with the course owner, and like all certified applicators, he carries insurance. The developer says those involved with the spraying will be happy to meet with any neighbor to evaluate the effect.